Welcome, Queen. Do you find yourself constantly having relational conflict? Well, here's the thing, you take you everywhere you go in love, life, and business. So let's talk relational conflict, how to handle not getting along. Now, I'm going to start us on a strong foundation. I'm going to share with you two definitions for relational conflict that I found on the web and my own personal simplified definition for relational conflict. Not because you lack intelligence, but because I don't want to lose you. My goal is to help you improve you. So, the first definition I found for relational conflict is this: the difference we feel between ourselves and others concerning how we relate to each other. The second definition I found for relational conflict: interpersonal or emotional conflict that takes place on an emotional or personal level. Now, here's my own simplified definition for relational conflict: a disagreement within yourself or with someone else. If I were to extend that, I would say a disagreement within yourself or someone else that negatively impacts your quality of life. Now, there was a time when I found myself constantly having the same disagreement, the same argument. And sometimes we think if we keep addressing the problem, it's going to change. However, if you have ever found yourself in a space, in a place where you went to address a problem in your relationship, but things did not change in your relationship and you found yourself extremely exhausted or extremely frustrated due to that, then here's what I want you to know. You got to get to the root of the problem. And how do you do that? You have to spot the pattern. What pattern? The relational conflict pattern. Yes, it does exist, meaning what is causing you to have this conflict? Before you have that argument, before you have that disagreement, what triggered it? Now, if it is a romantic situation, is it who was going to do the dishes? Is it who was going to cook? Is it who was going to help the child with the homework? Is it who was going to show up at the PTA meeting? Is it was, hey, you went over the budget again. You spent too much money. Was it you forgot to pay this bill? I told you that this needed to be paid on this date and you didn't do it. What is causing the conflict? Now, notice I said if it is a romantic conflict, because just because it is a relational conflict doesn't mean that it is romantic. We have relationships at work, we have relationships in our businesses if you are a business owner. So think that through, whether that situation, again, like I said, is romantic or not. Because if we don't get to the root, that's why we continue to have the problem. Consider it like this: imagine that you didn't feel well, so you went to the doctor, and the doctor gave you a prescription. But all that prescription did was baited down the symptoms, meaning it just minimized the symptoms. It didn't really get to the root of the issue that you presented to the doctor. Then guess what? You're never going to feel at your best because the prescription prescribed was not a prescription that was able to treat the root of why you had the symptoms in the first place. And sometimes that is how we are showing up in our relationships. We are showing up and we are having conversations, or we're getting into arguments rather, and at the end of it, we are not seeing any results, or I should say, we're not seeing the results that we would like to see. And so it keeps us in a state, in a space of constant conflict. And that is something that I know that you don't want. Now, if you would like to work with me one-on-one so you can have some one-on-one support to help you get to the root of your relational conflict, by all means, schedule a discovery call with me. I'll leave the link in the description box below. And here's something that I want you to always remember. A lot of people's problem with relational conflict in their relationship is that they haven't mastered the relationship with themselves. But now they've connected self to someone else. As always, I'm Coach Sam telling you that 24 hours doesn't seem long, but in 24 hours, you could change your life. So go ahead and do something life-changing now.